This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, good evening. Um, if, if anybody is having doubts till date, you are free to ask now before going into the session. Since um, today's topic is very important, an upcoming topic is relevant to today's topic. So if you want to clear anything, I request you to clear now. Now we will be getting into functions and then followed by it could be pointers, and so the pointers and functions are quite critical to get understand by beginners. So I would request, if you have any doubts till that, it will be better for you to get clarity till date so that we will be getting into functions. So we are getting into functions, and the function is nothing but otherwise it's a module. Since in a program which is running, since in a program which is running with bigger number of lines or statements, it is not always that we will need to go through a sequential way of computing. That is for understanding wise. That is, we need to divide the task so that to different functions or modules, so that individual functions can be performed, and we can monitor that individual modules closely what is happening in that module. It is not actually a divide and rule concept, but only the structure of writing program will be divide and organize. That's it. Otherwise, this will be a sequential programming only. For the sake of understanding, the functions will be modular in structure. This is similar to that a boss is deploying a job to somebody, and he takes that job and he executes the job and returns the output of that job to the boss. Parallelly, and, and it is parallelly some more jobs can be divided to somebody else also, but it will be in sequential structures since boss needs to stitch all these jobs together. Okay, it is similar to that. While we will see a small example or otherwise format of the functions and then get into the Example, while till now we have seen some of the functions like main, printf, return, not sorry, scanf, and then math functions like power of square, and then factorial. Okay, there are ready-made functions also available for factorial. While we build our own, and we will see the format of the functions. The procedure is that before function is defined, it has to be declared. Like we are declaring the uh, variable type, we need to, before defining the variable or initializing the variable, we are declaring the type of the variable. Similarly, here also function needs to be declared, and function needs to be declared with the type of return value. That is, for every function needs to return something after execution. If it is so, it is returning, or if it is, we have to inform whether it is returning or not returning any value output. If it is not returning, then it will be void. If it is returning, then we have to tell to the previous calling function that what it is returning. Okay, and function can take arguments. Arguments in the sense it can take values from the calling function. Calling function in the sense from where this function will be called. Like example, main will be calling any function. For example, main is calling any function. That is, we have a function calling from a main program. Then main program is the calling function, while while the function which is being called is called as a called function. So first we will see how it is being declared with a small program. So the declaration of the world function needs to be done first, and so world function with followed by semicolon is the declaration. That is, what we are declaring is that function's return type is, we are declaring it here, and then we have to declare what are the variables it can be transferred. That we'll see later. And so first initially we will see the return type, that is void is a return type. And coming to the main program, word is being called in internally, from the main program. And so main is the calling function, while world is the called function. And so the definition of the program main world function will be following the main function. And so void world of within the braces parenthesis, and then curly braces starts up. We are having the printf statement executed here. So we can have get characters also, so that you see how many functions we have used. There are no variables at all. Clear screen function, word function, get function. These three are functions, while inbuilt functions are clear screen function is an inbuilt function, get ch is an inbuilt function, while word is a customized function or user defined function. Let us compile the program and see. Allow world from world function, you see. So this is the way the function will be defined or declared and then called up. While you will see the execution, that is, you see, allow world from world function, allow world from main function. Sequentially it has happened, and then from see, and so world is, since world is called first, the world function will be executed first, and then it will return the after executing this function word function, the the execution will be handed over to the main function. And so following that, allow world from main function is executed. So now we will see the differences clearly. Now I'm adding a new line after the world function. Allow world from world function, allow world from main function. Okay, this is the way the function will be executed. There could be any number of functions can be added, while the functions which are defined, user defined, has to be declared first, and then it has to be defined also. While you can call, like from main function you are calling the world function, from world function you can call one more function also, but it should be defined after world. Since C program is a it compiles from the bottom top, and so you need to define the world function. If you are calling any function from world, you have to call it from, you have to define it after world function. Okay, like we will see that example also. allow world from main world 1 function, allow world from world 2 function, and then allow world from main function. You see the sequence in which it is operating, and we need to define world 2 after world 1, since world 2 is called from the world 1 function. Okay, so this terminology like calling function, called function, you need to be have a clarity. And so function from where it is being called is called calling function. The function which is called as called function. Okay, and we can have communication between this function also, while if you see we don't have communication from main function to world 1 function, world 1 function to world 2 function. That is communication in the sense we are not sharing any data across these functions. Usually when a boss is deploying some job to a subordinate, he needs to give some inputs also, he needs to share some information so that it can be performed. It can have some execution powers, it can have some prior information of execution. Since world is of data, we need to handle data, and so we need to share some data across the functions. Okay, so in real world there could be majority of possibility of returning some value to the called function, while calling function needs to share some data to the world function, so that so the called function, so that the called function can, after its execution, can return some significant value or data to the called function, calling function. Okay, so we will see some with example we will be able to attend this. Okay, we will shift to some other program. So we will, this is the previous program which we have seen of calculation factorial. We will execute this program, this factorial calculation in a function. Okay, we will dislocate this portion of program alone into a separate function. Okay, since there could be an inbuilt function of factorial, I am making it as fact1 here, and we need, since there is a data sharing of what is the input of factorial which this program has taken, that is we are enter a number of factorial, and so this data need to be shared across this function. And so that data we need to collect it, and so we need to declare a new data type so that it will be collected. There will be substantial changes in the program since many things are being changed. Since fact is not required in this program now, we are removing it, while it has to be declared here within the program as fact, and I also needs to be declared.
Hello, sir. Can we do by for loop?
No, we have gone with while,
Hello.
no? Yes. For loop also it's possible.
Yeah, but we can.
While is a, yes, we can do with for loop also. We have shown already. We have done already for loop also. Once in the previous classes, we have shown that example also. This factorial procedure you can do with while as well as for also. Mm, in the previous classes we have done for loop also. That is when for loop class was going on, we have we have done the same example, the factorial with for loop. And so now you see, now we are returning the fact value, and so this fact has to be collected by this calling function needs to collect that fact value, isn't it? Since it is returning to the previous function, that is calling function, that is main function, then that function needs to have the capacity to collect the data, and so we need to assign a variable here also. So we are reasoning the fact here. Fact is equal to fact1 of input underscore n. So we need to declare this function before its usage. So we are declaring it here. While since if you want, you can declare the any variable here, but it is not necessary. If you want, you can declare the variable and repeating. You can declare any variable you want to do, but it is not compulsion. Since in C mostly everything will be maintained lowercase, we are also maintaining lowercase. So return of fact I is equal to return. So if you see here, we are collecting the input data, that is the factorial number, and then we are calling the function fact1 of with that number. So the calling function will get the input as collected at fact underscore IP. And so previously we were the and so the number of loop which has to be run is the factorial is defined by the factorial input. We will run the program now. Okay. So 3 into 2 is 6. See the function is that particular factorial is dislocated as function now. So we'll go through once again here. That is, we are declaring the function here. While this is not necessary to give declare a variable at the declaration itself. That is this, and then coming to the factorial program. Here we are taking an input from the user to give the input, and we are calling the function fact1 of with that input. While this variable here, it will be called as an actual argument, this input underscore 1. While we are calling the function here int fact1, while this fact underscore IP will be called as the formal argument. Okay, here the duplication of that value will be taking place. That is, even we can have the same name here input underscore n, but here a one more variable with input underscore 1 will be created, which has no
Sir,
relationship
why?
with the calling function. Yes, anything?
Sir, sir, why we are going to take fact equals to fact one? There is only
uh,
fact of input now. Why
No,
fact one?
no, no. That is, you mean to ask I is equal to fact is equal to 1, isn't it?
No,
That is
sir.
your doubt?
You are taken in case where fact equals
What?
to fact one of input underscore n you are taken.
Where it is? Which fact is equal
Case
to
three.
fact 1? Okay, okay, okay. Case 3. That is, you see,
There is only fact one. Fact only. No.
no, no. That is a variable. This fact is a variable, int variable. Okay. This is a variable, integer variable. While this is a function. Okay. This is a function we are calling. Like main is a function, printf is also a function. You see here, printf is a function. So here this is also a function, and so internally, if you say printf also, internally this printf will be called. This this printf is declared and defined in the stdio.h. Here you will have the definition for printf. That is why we are including stdio.h in the beginning itself, indicating the compiler these functions, whatever is inside this std.io.h, the variables inside that header and functions will be included in this program. Okay. Similarly, this is a now we are declaring a user defined function, and we are trying to use this function in the program, and so we need to define the activity of that function fact1. Okay, so when this function is called from this location, okay, this function will be executed. Once this is executed, this factorial value is whatever the end result is stored in this fact variable, isn't it? And so we need to hand over this variable to the calling function. Calling function is main function. Okay, and so we need to hand over, that is return the data to the calling function so that it can utilize for further processing. And so when this data is returned by this function, that data needs to be stored by the this main function, isn't it? It has to store in some location. Okay, and so it is stored in the fact variable, which is integer variable. Since this fact one function is returning a integer type variable, that is, which is declared as integer here, this is the return type of the function, and we are returning the integer variable only. Okay, since you see here fact is an integer variable, so whenever the function is returning, it has to have the capacity to capture that. Capture that means store it. Otherwise, where it will be keeping it? In memory only it has to keep. That memory is nothing but that memory location is defined as fact. It has to store in some memory. No, this fact is executed some data and it is returning. Since once this that function is executed and completed, this there is no job for this variables. Okay, while calling function from main, it has to, after this function is executed, it has to capture the data and store it some memory, and that memory is named as fact. That is why we are using fact is equal to fact of function, and this fact variable we are using to display in the screen. Have you understood? Excuse me, gentlemen, whoever you was asked, can you respond now? Hello? 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 Hello, do it's clear for you? The person who was asked a question, can you reply? Hello? Okay. uh, and so this is how this program function will be executed. Okay. So this is called as actual argument, while this will be called, this is called as formal argument. Suppose this f1 act is returning a float variable and fact is an integer variable, then type conversions will take automatically. That is, from float to integer conversions will take place automatically. And what else more is, we can send multiple arguments also. Here in our case there was only one argument. Suppose we are doing, here in this function we are requiring an addition of two numbers, and so this function needs to share two arguments for doing the addition operation, and so two arguments will be shared and to the function. Okay. The one more input here it is that the variables which are declared within the any function will be local to the that function. That is, it will be visible only to that function, and it will not be visible to any other function. Okay, since it is locally defined in the function. Similarly, these two variables which are declared inside the functions, this factorial function will be visible to this fact1 function. Even this fact underscore IP is also defined inside that fact1 function only. And so this variable will be visible to the this fact1 function. It will not be visible to the main function. And so we need to return that data back to the calling function so that it can be captured. While return can return only one variable, it cannot return more than one variable. Okay, and so when coming classes we will see what is the alternative method to return multiple values to the calling function, that is in this case main function. So since Since these fact variables are visible only within the functions, we can use the same name format input underscore n. Here also we can use same variable. Since there are two different memory locations are allocated for the same variable, and this function will have this fact1 function will have control over its own input underscore n variable, while main function will have control over its own input underscore n variable, since they are not visible across the functions. If a variable needs to be visible globally, that is multiple functions needs to view the same variable, then we need to declare the variable globally here itself. Okay, but what is the problem is, when main function can take the control of this variable input underscore IP, while um, factorial function can also take the control of this variable. If any change is done by the factorial module in the input in the global variable which is declared here, then the changes will be visible in the main function also. And so the functions which are to be modified locally in any the variables which has to be locally modified in particular functions only, then it has to be declared local to that function only. Okay. Well, in this case, we can go for a global variable since we are not going to alter anything. We are going to only check what is the, we are using this data for only verifying the test condition in while loop. So in this case, we can go for a global declaration of this same value. In that case, we need not transfer the data across the function. Okay. Any doubts is there?
No, sir. It's clear. Clear, sir. Clear. It's clear.
Okay. So we will see that part also. See, but in that case, we should not have to duplicate the names here. See, factorial program still now also we are able to execute the data factorial. For 5 it is 120. The output is right. So you see this is the global data declaration, and this is the global function, sorry, this is the function declaration which has to be global, and this is variable declaration, global variable declaration, and it is visible across the multiple functions. So now we have seen along with the function local and global variables also. So we will we will see a thing, that is one more thing which I want to repeat here is the return function can return only one variable at a time. So this function needs to return two variables. Suppose a we can say area, that is it is computing any other equations also, like uh, yeah, if it is executing area of this function, if suppose a function is needs to return area of a square, volume of a square, then it cannot return two values at the same time. For that we will be using pointers. We'll see when pointers are coming, at that time we'll see pointers what it is. Okay. While we can call many functions from a program, Okay. Uh, there is a one thing, the what we have to see here, it is the order of passing the arguments. If we have multiple arguments which are to be like in the case of summation of two numbers, then we need to pass two values, since sum of two values will be taking place. So what is the order? Suppose we are having a sum of for example four values, then what is the argument? In this case, the arguments will be from left. The values will be passed from left to right only. In the normal cases, there are certain cases where the arguments can pass from right to left also. Okay. In this case, if the sum is added, if the arguments are passed to the calling functions, a calling function is passing arguments to the called functions, the sequence of calling is does not matter. Okay. See, this is how we'll be calling it. And so A will be mapped to X, B will be mapped to Y, C will be mapped to W, and D will be mapped to V. So it does not matter. While in certain cases, like printf functions, which are inbuilt functions, the calling will be from right to left. I'm taking an example now. So I request you to execute and see, since it can differ from compiler to compiler. Suppose in this case, suppose x is initialized to 1. In this case, x is initialized to 1, and we are using the printf statement. Printf function is actually a function. So this, we could expect that the program to give us output as 1, 1, and then 3. That is, y in the sense is, we can expect 1, since x is 1, a display of 1 will be taking place. And after in the second, we are doing it as, since still now all x is 1, we will be displaying it 1. And consecutive to x plus 1, the x value is changed as x plus 1. So result is 2. So but this change will happen after making this x variable display. Now the, for plus 1, for plus plus x, now the variable of x value is 2, and before using that variable 2, it will be added with 1, which will be assigned to x, and so we would expect x is equal to 3. So 1 1 3 will be expecting, but the case is different. The output will be 2 comma 2 comma 3. Since here the right to left execution will take place in this printf function, passing of arguments when the arguments are passed. Okay, so plus plus x will be executed, and so x value is will become 2, and x plus plus is nothing but x value will be displayed first, and then plus plus value will be executed. And so at the stage also x value is, before printing it will be 2, after printing it will become 3, and x value will be as 3. And I'll have to people to confirm it in the next class after executing this program. Okay, so shall we close the session for today? If you have any no doubts, we'll close the session. So functions will be done as of this stage. So the number of variables you are passing, you have to collect that so many numbers of variables in the called function also. These are the points you have to see. If you have no doubts, we will close the session. Thank you.